Nothing we say here is investment advice, legal advice, life advice, or representative of the views of the organization we are part of or affiliated with. See chainabstracted.com for more information.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Chain Abstracted, a podcast brought to you from near, but it's all about everything in Web3. Alton, good to see you, man.
Good to see you as well. How are you doing?
Doing well, man. I'm in Mexico City, just on work. So this episode was our episode 3. We're going. We're churning, man.
Yeah, Zaki's an interesting person to have in the podcast. He's one of these folks that, can also talk about Cosmos origins, but also can relate to Ethereum and other, like even Solana, right? So it's an amazing person to have in the podcast to talk about all the technology that Chain Abstract brings.
Totally, and he had a lot of knowledge in things that like a Karate DAO, and then he gave some founder info, which I think I was really excited to talk to him about that because he's done so much in the space for so long. So anyone listening to this who's a founder or who's thinking about being a founder, it's like he dropped some great knowledge towards the end of the pod about that, and I thought that was really nice, sort of like where their focus could be and where there's some like good opportunities that are maybe overlooked in Web3. And then I thought you and him brought up a part that, dude, I thought that where does the value accrual go?
Yeah, that was an interesting one. The conversation of super apps is definitely interesting, right? If you think about it, a super app from Web 2, like if you think about, all those in Alibaba, all those in Asia, all the ones in Middle East, like how do we think about that concept in crypto is pretty interesting. And I think he broke that down pretty nicely.
The idea of Web3 being super decentralized is what I like about it. I don't know if I'm super pro super app, but
well, it's open, right? I mean, if you think about it, it's an open layer, so you can build your own mini super app if you really want. That's what, like, if you think about apps being just every country has its own app. Super app is basically almost like liquidity aggregation across different nation states, right? I mean, that's what the idea is, but instead it's permissionless, where you can go build it yourself. Not you have to ask the government to give it up.
Oh, a good point, dude. I've never thought about it as like liquidity aggregation and just sort of, it's like kind of organizing things neatly for users, right? So they don't have to like worry about all this stuff. But then when tech's not a moat, it's going to be all about brand and community, right?
Well, that's why we're excited about Telegram in general.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, everyone, I hope you enjoy this episode, and thanks for listening.
Hi, my name is Zaki Manian. I have been I've been working in cryptocurrency since 2013. Been contributor to Cosmos, co-founder of a DeFi protocol called Sommelier Finance, which is an example of chain abstraction. Me and my co-founder Christy conceived of it as a chain abstraction app from the beginning. And we also, and then I've been working on this chain abstraction concept with a bunch of people. I've been working on it with Near, I've been working on it with Polygon, I've been working on it with Agoric, been working on it with Frontier. It's a group effort. Just talked to Socket people last week in Dubai. Everyone this is a big industry effort. So why? I started working with interoperability protocols for a long time because I thought, I was always skeptical of this idea there's going to be one blockchain. Now we have blockchains. They do interoperate. It's pretty great. It's pretty cool. Moving funds from Solana to an Ethereum L2 to a Cosmos chain. If you know the right things, if you're like me, basically, and you have a lot of context and you know all the little routes, you know which websites to use and which wallets and everything, it actually could be pretty great. But that's not something that's approachable to the average user. The average user is like, oh, I want to buy an NFT on this change. Now I have to pick up all of this sort of contextual knowledge of I am here in the blockchain and I need to go there. And can you imagine if the web worked that way, right? Like, no, I am at google.com and I want to use ChatGPT. And now I have to travel step by step through a series of tubes to get there, right? Insane. And so the concept of chain abstraction is we have frameworks for building blockchains. They're increasingly scalable. We're fixing a lot of bugs. We have security through data availability systems. We have consensus algorithms. We have all these building blocks. but it's all the usability sucks. And what's the miss? So this chain abstraction is kind of a catch-all term for a bunch of different things that are being built by a bunch of different teams, collectively, that will give app builders the ability to imbue their application with a set of pieces that, abstract over, eliminate for the user all of this fine-grained, highly contextual money movement, and instead you just like get this experience where it's like, I want to use a blockchain. We're like, great, you have a pool of capital, you connect your bank account, etc. You connect your crypto exchange account, and now you can just use things. That's all. That's all I want, is just to make it so if I want to use something, I can just use it.
Awesome. So that's a great example. And I think you mentioned, Zaki, that you've been working with Polygon. I know Avail is trying to do something similar with Nexus. I know that Near is trying to do this similar things. So we have this sort of like this landscape of chain abstraction, right? How does the value accrue happen here? Maybe we can start like how Near does it, how Avail and Polygon try to do a different way, right? I mean, we know that through proof aggregation. Maybe let's break that landscape and then see, how do we understand, like if I'm a user or if I'm let's say, somebody that wants to understand a space, how do I understand value accrual here?
All right, let's talk about it first in terms of how we've understood maybe value accrual in the past. I guess I've been in blockchain a decade, and I've seen a lot of movement in different ideas of where value accrual will where will value accrual happen? Why will something be valuable, etc. So the initial concept is initially everyone thought everything would be on Bitcoin, its L2s, etc. That was the sort of meta thesis. And you saw early versions of rollups and everything, Lightning Network, all this stuff. But people at the time couldn't really build what they want. It's been interesting. A bunch of interesting technologies have happened on Bitcoin. Now there's a whole new sort of resurgence in Bitcoin. But for a while, but then Ethereum came out. Ethereum was smart contracts. And what did people see? People saw, okay, so there's going to be a chain. It's going to have smart contracts on it. And those smart contracts are going to enable all kinds of novel and interesting forms of coordination mechanisms that are really cool on this like shared computer. And then everyone was like, okay, that's cool. So now Ethereum is the capital asset and the gas asset of ETH is that asset. And now the value will accrue to that asset. And that was like sort of 2016. So then 2017, everyone was like, well, okay, I'm going to make my own Ethereum, right? Like, there's an endless, but they're like, Ethereum got really expensive. So people were like Ethereum, but more scalable. And so then everyone was like, okay, so then my asset, my soul, my Near, my N number of other things, right, is, my dots, et cetera, will all be the gas asset and the capital asset of some new environment where there's going to be a set of smart contracts and application, a set of smart contracts and then applications that talk to those smart contracts. Okay, so, and then you get to the L1 rotation, right? And we've mostly been seeing versions of the L1 rotation. Now we have the ETH L2 rotation, but you could argue that's not all that different. But then if you look at like, what do you actually do on the applications, right? Like, what are actually people like? I mean, we're actually still in a pretty primitive time in the applications. We're in such a primitive time that like automating what is pump.fun, but automating deploying the contract to create a new coin, creating that coin, doing a liquidity bootstrapping pool, and then creating a DEX pool. And like making that like a 0.1, basically a one-click interface is some sort of like gigantic UX transformation that is like changed is like has been like the meta for this entire industry, and being able to do it on two different blockchains. All of that is a little bit disappointing, frankly. So what is the idea of chain abstraction? The idea of chain abstraction is, well, we want people to be able to do that. We want people to do that and more complicated things. We want people to trade in and out of those coins. We want people to be able to seed liquidity bootstrap pools. But, when somebody like, even Pump.Fun, right? Like they have Sol and ETH, and so they have like two different wallet ecosystems, two different block explorer ecosystems, two different everything just within Pump.Fun. And if you want to trade a coin on base and you have you've been trading on Solana, now you have to know how to move your funds from Solana to base, and that's insane. So, and then like why value? So where does this imply value accrual? I guess my long-term hypothesis about crypto has always been the real place where value accrues is the application layer. And then everything else is about proximity to that, what is this, to the user's order flow. So it's very valuable. It's like, it's a valuable piece of information. If someone is out there and says, I want to short something, long something, buy something, sell something. It actually is, that's like a new sort of unit, a packet of information that's been introduced into this coordination mechanism that is blockchains. And what we're trying to do with the chain abstraction layer and why we think it can accrue quite a lot of value is we want that to be we want the first piece of infrastructure that idea touches is to be one of the systems of one of the chain abstraction infrastructure layers. And then those infrastructure layers now go out and do the swaps, create the orders, do all of these things, and make sure it gets executed on behalf of the user. And even if the funds are residing on various execution layers, so the funds are on Solana, the funds are on Base, like you can imagine just taking Pump.Fun as it currently exists and sticking chain abstraction between the wallet and the user. And what it would do is it would allow people to do things like, hey, I have a position on, a Solana meme coin, and I would like to exchange that position for a position on, on a base meme coin. And instead of ever having to know about a bridge or anything, you just simply say to the chain abstraction layer, hey, I'm going to trade this. And there's a variety of ways to then get value at the chain abstraction layer. Like you could have a market maker potentially execute that order flow. You could execute trades on a variety of dexes and bridges. You could charge fees for all of that. But you can basically charge a small fee for executing this on behalf of the user.
Interesting. So I guess let me wrap this up. So we have the simple app should look when you come to dump Pump.Fun, user should say, hey, I'm going to buy this meme coin, and just like the rest of it is just taken by the application itself.
And wouldn't that be, well, there's two questions there. Wouldn't that be expensive as it stands currently to be able to move all these stuff at the back? Second, how do you vision this sort of, maybe today, like it will take a lot of time, but in the future, we should want to do this for like 2-3 seconds. And first, and third question is like, if we're doing this, application accrues value by probably charging some sort of like the Visa network or something gets a small cut, and that probably gets them the revenue. And does that mean it's going to be a play of like almost like a super app at the end of the day, right? Where you just come in, you're able to do everything, and then that's where the value accrue happens, like all the models we see in Asia.
So first question was like, how does all of this happen, right? Like, I think there was this how question. So I think the actual answer to, so like, let's take the case that a user has funds on Coinbase or Binance, and they already have an account there, or they have funds on Solana, or they have funds on Base, and they want to be able to, and they want to be able to like buy a coin. There's like different cases, but it's like let's take the case of I have USDC on Solana because I've been trading on Solana, or I sold an asset on Solana. Now I have USDC on Solana. Actually, no. Let's talk. I have dog with hat on Solana, and I wanna own Degen on Base, right? Let's just like take that, 2 coins of the moment, right? And like, why do I want that? I feel like With is losing the meme wars and Degen is the future, and I want to go do that. That's your conceptual framework. So what do you what does the infrastructure have to be able to do for that? So the first thing it could do is it could do what the kids are calling intents these days. It could first, so you could sign something that basically says, hey, like, coordinate settlement for me. If someone is willing to give me degen on base, I'm willing to trade at least this much WIF for this much degen. Is somebody willing to set? So in order to do that, you need some place where that can be executed. You need smart contracts on the Solana chain and on the base chain that can handle the escrow. And you can and that. But that's what the kids call intents these days. And cross-chain intents, and then you need to be able to oracle the escrow event, the fact that the WIF has entered escrow and the degen has entered escrow, and those events need to be oracled somewhere, maybe cross-chain to the contract or to a third thing, which could be another chain, could be Agora, could be Near, etc. Okay, so that's what the kids call intents, and I don't think intents are the intents are not the be-all and end-all of chain abstraction. Because in that use case, somebody needs to market make for you, right? Like somebody needs to go in and have inventory of degen that they're willing to give to the escrow contract. And chain abstraction is more general than that. So let's say you sit there and you put out this order, and it's you give it a second or two for someone to come in and market make it, and the infrastructure is sitting there tracking that. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, no one came along, right? And you still want to get this done. You were like, I still want to get this done. So now the infrastructure should be able to go out, let's say, swap your WIF for USDC for you. So make that transaction. Then make a CCTP transaction, burning USDC on Solana, minting it on base, and then swap. And what you want to be able to do is you don't want to sign anything else. The idea of chain abstraction is key is once you signed the, hey, chain abstraction infrastructure, get this done for me, that flow of, oh, try doing it with intents. Give it a timeout. If the intent can't get it done, then go try and execute it yourself and do that. And then, the worst case scenario is you ended up with USDC because the price of degen and WIF moved, and now we can't complete the transaction. And then the user just should basically be like, okay, I clicked this, I went and I checked my Telegram, and I went and did all I paid my taxes, I paid my credit card bill, I did all this other shit. I come back to my browser window, and I should just see oh, okay, either I have my degen, or I have USDC on base, and these were the only outcomes, and I didn't have to do anything else. And we have little previews of this kind of user experience, and it's kind of awesome right now. There's a thing in Cosmos called ibc.fun that is is a team I work with called Skip built it, and it gives you this one signature experience that is really cool, and it's entirely a different user experience. Even if you're routing through Ethereum mainnet and it takes 20 minutes for finality, the experience of I don't have to sign again is pretty game changing.
So there's a single possible super app, some sort of thing, a browser, who knows? And that could be the app. And you go to an app. Then the next layer down is the chain abstraction sort of layer. And then that layer does executions in all sorts of different ways, or intents or whatever. And then below that layer is thousands of blockchains. L1s, L2, it doesn't even matter at that point.
Whatever
right?
nonsense our industry has decided to create in the last 5 minutes, it's there, right?
So the chain abstraction is just so people can use layer. Wouldn't it make sense? I mean, AI could do a lot of that stuff, right? An AI sort of LM could really, basically some sort of AI product could sort and route all that.
Yeah, and I'll build on that. It's more like operations research from all the background, right? It's just routes. And maybe how do we think about that, right? I guess the first one is ops research. Second is more hey, LLMs are like done, they're not probabilistic anymore, which they are. Like, you don't want to trust an LLMs to do these things, but just want to give that sort of idea there as well.
Yeah, and then you want the AI to be open source because you don't want a centralized person owning that AI that does everything on the chain abstracted. So then let me ask you a question about the value accrual real fast. Users could get a lot of the value. And what I mean by that is in a decentralized way, like in a centralized ecosystem, the products get most of the value at and give the users use of the product, but also they sell data and all sorts of stuff, right? When you have a decentralized world, we're almost our own little we're in our own little pods navigating around all this place. So isn't it possible that some of that value accrual could actually go to the users and what they do, right? Like, because now we have a way to sort value that way.
Yeah. So there's another idea here, which is that the value doesn't even need, like, the user doesn't even need to pay a fee in the ideal world. Because in an ideal world, there may be well, why don't you pay trading fees on Robinhood? You don't pay trading fees on Robinhood because your order flow gets routed, because like Citadel gets to see your order flow. Citadel pays for the alpha for that data, and that data covers trading fees, and like effectively you're the product. There can be a world though where it's like, oh, all right, well actually, I mean, and this, teams like Anoma have been working on stuff like this, which is this idea, like Anoma, the Flashbots team with Swab have been working on ideas like this, where it's like, oh, we don't even reveal to the chain abstraction layer or to like this layer your order. We instead reveal maybe like that you want to trade this asset, but we don't give you your price or anything. And then someone says, okay, I'm gonna like bid to be able to like execute against that order, and I might do that execution in some sort of private computational infrastructure, where no one can fully see where I don't get to see your order. Instead, I get to inject a piece of software, a little bot that gets to see your order and then execute against it. And in that process, you might get more degen than you thought you were going to get, because I bid. Because like the market maker was in a bidding war with other people who were like, no, I want that. I want to execute against that order. Well, I want to bundle it against my like counterflow of orders of people trading degen for width. Like I could do, and so and there's been like an increasing amount of research from people like Tarun from Gauntlet, talking about how that world might be engineerable.
I mean, that makes sense to me. The other thing, maybe we should probably think about in that world. Like, I'm still going to the super app example. I don't know why. It's just because the entry, the gateway, right?
Okay, so I'll give you my pushback against super apps.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So all of the APIs in a super app are gated, right? Like you can't access those APIs outside of the super app, right? So so WhatsApp is probably the closest thing to a super app that Westerners have access to. But if you use like one of these, I'm trying to remember, Grab. I was using Grab in Singapore, in Southeast Asia. Yeah, that was a great example of a super app, right? It has everything in it. And in the Middle East, you have Kareem, it's just in Dubai. And it's amazing what you can do, right? Every super app, every service provider is like, rate limits and defines what experience the user can make. If instead you have these open permissionless chain abstraction infrastructure and a set of smart contracts and everything that do specific things and have specific economic models, but then app developers just consume them. They're like, hey, I need routing, and I'm going to pick from the routing contract that's on Near, or the routing contract that's on Agoric, or the routing contract, or one of the choices, right? I pick one of those, and then all I have to do, and then I just integrate it in my app. I'm not constrained. And so I don't know whether or not it's going to be, I think there are going to be super apps, but I honestly think that the history of super apps in crypto has not been super bullish. Like even in like just single chain or single ecosystem super apps, like like uh Instadap and Zerion and stuff like that, have not have not really achieved ubiquity and had weird issues where it's like, they feel like they're, sometimes like where like the competitive dynamics around them are weird. Whereas like, as someone who's built an application like Sommelier, and like we've been looking for like a routing solution forever, we just want like right now, like we're very happy if someone else includes Sommelier in their routing solution, we're like super happy, and we don't it's great. If I was just talking to a team today who like wrapped a Sommelier strategy. We're like, we don't want to drive you to our UI, but if you're on our UI, we want a routing solution that is open to everyone, and we don't want to have to join like your app and pay a tax to you necessarily as the only way of getting around.
I see. So it looks more like this, right? Let's just change analogy. The app is asking for a service, like I want routing, I want bridging, I want this. And in this sort of chain abstraction layer that Jared mentioned, the best service, because it's decentralized, I can plug it in and I can provide the best service in that sort of the box, right? I mean, that doesn't, the example of like Grab, for example, that one service is given by Grab, and it's probably not the best experience that would be given. So is that the future that we're looking for in that sense, Zaki?
Yeah, I think that's hopefully what we end up with, and that will be a very decentralized world. It'll be a very usable world. It'll be a world where where blockchain is actually a very dynamic thing, where there's not like, oh, we've just like ossified down into this like one blockchain to rule them all, or one architecture or one topology. Instead, like, oh, okay, like, well, I've spun up a new blockchain and it works like this, and well, I don't rather than like what you do today, which is like, oh, I have to like, I don't know, you're sweet and you're like, I have to ship a gaming console to get order flow. I'm like, okay, that sounds like that sounds really painful. But imagine a world where it's like, okay, I've made Sui. I need to implement implement the plugins to like plug into IBC and the Polygon Ag layer and a couple of other interop protocols. I make some pull requests. I do that work. And then suddenly, if I have a DEX that has assets on it that people want, or better pricing on assets that they have, immediately order flow happens. If I have perps, and it's just like, it's just apps like it's like the internet. It's like routing value, and it's just like, oh, you've made a new website, now everything just plugs to you, like, and that's what blockchains could be.
Totally. It sounds like the chain abstraction layer is going to be essential for like more than just a super into people who have got like 50 wallets to do stuff all around. So I think a lot of business models are like SaaS models from Web 2, and they're just like, yeah, we're Web 3, we're a SaaS model monthly. And it's like, why would you do that? You've got so many more unique tech. What are your thoughts on business models in Web 3?
I gotta say that like I think business model innovation is very, very early. I think we have literally we like discovery is very early. Like what user interactions people enjoy. I think like a lot of the meta of the last, I don't know, 10 years basically has been a lot of the meta of the last 10 years has been exchange listing as product, right? Like your business model is, I made a token, there's some hype, and we got an exchange listing. And I've played that game a lot in my life, in various ways. And while it is certainly a way of funding and building a lot of important technology, it also feels kind of stupid. I recently launched an NFT collection for the first time, and that's been an interesting experience. As thing as like a completely different business model, and community formation model and everything. And so I'm playing with that. I think what Armani is doing, where he's like, we have a wallet and we have an exchange and we have an NFT collection on Solana, is way more of the future. I mean, I joke that like a decade of work in cryptography and distributed systems and building novel things and doing, go to markets of very complex technology, and like what I will be remembered for is as an NFT influencer. But I honestly think that more crypto folks, more builders should be exploring. Like I think what yeah, I mean I respect builders across the space. I think I like the teams on Near that are sort of very Web 2 native and like very much abstract. I went to this so I've known the founder of this thing called Karate Combat. I was just at that Saturday night. So Karate Combat is the professional sports league for the sport of karate, and it is owned by a DAO. It's not a weird side hustle. It's not like, oh, there's like this little corner. No, the best fighters in karate in the world fight in this league. And it is owned by a DAO. Like token holders literally vote on rule changes like every day. Like it has like novel mechanics. But if you download their app, there's a token and you have access to governance rights and stuff like that. But you don't really see the chain. Right? But it doesn't feel integrated. Where chain abstraction would make a difference for the karate app, the karate token, is right now karate feels like a thing that's like isolated in its own little bubble, separated from the rest of crypto. So like I can't easily be like, hey, like I just made a bunch of money on DJ, but I love like combat sports. And now I want to like own a bunch of karate and like bet and vote on rule changes. Or like there's a vote to like change the rules to like, like they just changed the rules recently to add grappling rules to it. And I'm like, what if you are super passionate about grappling and like you're like, and like all I have, but like I'm a soul whale and like, but I want to influence the vote. Like I want to go load up on karate. Like you shouldn't have to there's definitely a way of getting from point A to point B there, but I think maybe like there's like 5 people under it who could probably have done that. Like, and like that's what chain abstraction could change. That's what the karate app builders, if they didn't have to boil the ocean to do this, if they're like, no, we take this JavaScript widget, we talk to the near, we like interact with the smart contract on the near chain. We make this set of calls, and like we have liquidity from Solana, ETH2s, Cosmos, all able to flow into our app and flow out of our app. Like all of the, that's the way the world would work. It would be amazing.
No, that's a great example.
That was great.
I mean, it's not even, there's like, I love these sort of, probably you can use karate as like betting and other stuff. And I think that model is pretty interesting.
I mean, I had a great night. I had a great time. I've never been to a live combat sport event in my life. I know the founder. He's been a friend for a decade in crypto, and it was like, so what I'm saying is it's to me, I love seeing more people building things that are outside of this. Like karate's motto is not exchange listing as service.
Yeah.
Karate's motto is like we've created a professional sports league that is amazing and is truly owned by the fans. And the token is integral to it. And it's a crazy experiment. I like my friend who I went with, it's like a super fan in the top 10 on their leaderboard, etc. And like he was like, I don't even know what the rules are right now because I have to go back through the government, but the refs have to like stay on top of the governance proposals and like what's passed because like those are the rules. Like this is amazing. This is the future I want.
Totally.
And like chain abstraction could make it so things like that could have like 99% user friction, less user friction, and you know, this thing seems to be growing. Honestly, it does seem to be growing. Um, and so if they're going to get to this point where they're onboarding millions of sports fans, yeah, I mean that's the other thing, right? Is like, I saw some tweets over the weekend where I think Ansem was saying, that meme coins are like materially impacting the business of sports betting. So like the FanDuels, etc., are being like materially affected by like, and so this is where you realize is meme coins, sports betting, prediction markets, are all one thing. NFTs. It's one industry. It doesn't matter what chain it's on, and it all just needs to be unified.
Yeah, and increases the TAM, right? I mean, karate guys that were like not even looking to crypto now end up like, oh, I have this token now, I can do other stuff with it. So
yeah, I mean, it's funny. I was in the airport last night coming back from Dubai, and one of my friends I was talking to one of my friends, and he was like, yeah, I didn't even like, I'm a fan of the people who fought last night. Like, I didn't even know that it was a crypto thing. And then like you message me and you're like, oh, I'm going to it, and I'm like, fuck. He was like, oh, I want to go.
yeah. So another question there, like, is the founder of, let's forget about all these like L1, L2s that like everybody wants to try to do, right? And let's go to that world of, right, like, how do we find those founders, right? I mean, like, how does this guy ended up, hey, like tokens are a great way to kind of do this experience? Like, is that what we should look for? I mean, as people that want to build like chain abstraction experiments, right? That's the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think there's two ways of doing it. One is you can have people who are in crypto and have been who want to experiment with new things, who want to try new things. So like I did this NFT collection, right? And the concept of this NFT collection was, I mean, on it, I would have gone harder on the chain abstraction if there was more technology that was out of the box. But like, this was like a part-time project for it. I also watched this NFT collection called Celestian Sloth Society. And it's kind of become a big thing. I had this idea last year. Celestia doesn't really have like a native NFT ecosystem yet. And I'm like, okay, so like what piece of chain abstraction can I put together? Because I think for the culture, Celestia needs something like this. I've been a contributor to Celestia since 2019. So I was like, this needs to happen. And so I put all these pieces together. And so like, what are the pieces? I got TIA as a mint currency on another Cosmos chain. I then got I was able to like whitelist TIA stakers on that other Cosmos chain. And like, yeah, okay, like again, if you're not me, I'm not sure that you could have made this happen. Like, I was like writing scripts at like 2 a.m. in the morning, like 4 hours before the mint to like, make Merkle trees and stuff like that. But like, the result was cool. The result was cool. It's like, there's this feeling that like, oh, there's this outpost of Celestia now on this other Cosmos chain, and and people love it. And so I don't know that you have to say, oh, we need a completely new population of founders. I think we just need founders to sort of experiment with thinking differently. I also think that like, our friend who founded Karate Combat, he liked the sport. He liked the idea. He had been like crypto adjacent for a long time. He owns a lot of Bitcoin, but like never built anything in crypto. But had been like, observing all of these different ideas, had been very involved. It was a very high context and could make this. And yeah, this stuff is great. So I think, like I said, I'm like bullish applications. I'm bored of L1s. I want to make stuff that's fun and like make people feel excited and that people will actually use. Yeah, I mean, and then like going back to the history Sommelier, Sommelier is a Cosmos chain in some senses, and the Cosmos chain runs a bunch of stuff that most of our users never see, and all of our users interact with the system that exists on Ethereum or Base. And Christy was the one who came up with this idea. She was like, this is the user experience, because nobody wants to like install a new wallet. They just want to push a button and it makes money, make it happen, right? And so we put and so we built that with the technology that was available in 2021, and it was pretty hard, but it works. And now things like Near's sort of wallet built into the system existed if Agoric's asynchronous contracts that existed. All of the stuff that we built would be way easier, instead of like all of these like complicated hand-tuned state machines.
Alton, any other, like, you want to like dial into a couple more tech things? Because then I really want to talk about just you as a founder, and I think your knowledge there for founders in the space.
100%. Let's go there. I think Zaki has been doing a bunch of stuff. So love to learn more about that. So Jared has good questions there.
Yeah, man. So okay, you're a founder. You've been here for a decade. I would say prolific founder. I'd like diving in on you. What is maybe one area in Web3 you think founders could be looking at that's maybe a little overlooked right now, that you think is like, that's where products can be made and users will use them?
So I've spent the last decade mostly in doing sort of like gigabrain, right curve, visionary shit. That has been, and this isn't, I'm not necessarily saying to say that to toot my own horn, and then I looked at all of this stuff, and and then for a long time there were all the people who were just like pumping tokens and having expensive parties and all of that stuff, and that was like the scammy, sleazy side of crypto, right? And like I was over in my ivory tower, building intellectually pure things. I would say I think the things that excite me the most are when people are willing to combine these two, like to live on both sides. And I would encourage more founders to try and think of ways of living on both sides. And the sloths thing is maybe it's definitely my first successful foray into living on both sides. And it's super, super fun. Like the first vision is give something to people that like feels fun, right? I think this is the thing that is possible today. Like you can simultaneously take something that is entirely visionary, entirely gigabrain. Mustafa and Ishmael and John and Nick from Celestia are just absolutely visionary founders. It has been a privilege to work with them. The ideas are so big, but then also you can layer on top of it a bunch of cute, cool slots, and like number go up, and like a fun community experience, and like a Discord chat where where everyone is just kind of says lazy morning every few hours, and like people like that too. And like I think that was the thing that like we've never been able to sustainably have in crypto for a long time. A lot of it was because the tech was inadequate, right? Like it just stuff ran out of steam. You couldn't continue to build. You'd run into these weird technical roadblocks, but it's kind of better now. And so I would say, if you're really good at building communities and coming up with interesting user interactions and stuff that feels fun, go hang out with the Gigabrain founders. And if you're a Gigabrain founder, go be thinking about like, how do you layer in stuff that's just fun?
Dude, that's a really good answer, man. And like, I think in a decentralized world, in centralized worlds, you have giant megacorps worth trillions of dollars that can do all the ad budget and spray to the world, all their things. In a decentralized world, it'll be, I think, much more about like this kind of karate example where it's like smaller but much more ecosystems that all have their own individual community. It's not going to be 100 billionaires. It's going to be tens of thousands of people who are millionaires, right? Is what I hope. That's my hope for the decentralized world.
Yeah, Ilya learned that quite nicely over the time too. Like he was like very Giga Brain stuff, and then he started to be more like, oh, there's black dragons and all that stuff. So I think he's been doing really well there. But thanks for that insight. I think that really enjoyed that. We're running sort of short almost there. So anything that comes, Jared? Maybe the last thoughts from Zaki in terms of how do we think about chain abstraction, or if somebody watched this podcast, where should they like go into this sort of this rabbit hole? Because we like rabbit holes in crypto for some reason.
That's a great question. As far as I don't, this is a good question. We probably need to get our acts together, and I know. So Near has so basically right now, like Near has a chain abstraction page. You guys are gonna have to look up the URL. I don't know off the top of my head. Agoric has their orchestration page. We have this thing called the Cake Framework that we've been discussing. It's still a little bit pulling the pieces together into like a strong industry community, but it is a good time. The idea of if I'm a user of blockchain, I shouldn't have to know what chain, like if you know what chain abstraction is, everything has failed. Like we completely failed at this. Like this isn't the next. You should just be like, no, like suddenly, oh, there's a bunch of apps that got easier to use, and and there was like some value accrual to like build and Near and other other tokens that are providing the infrastructure, and that might be good, but it's like it's just like if you're using ChatGPT, you don't need to know what NVIDIA is. You just know it has something to do with using ChatGPT.
Yeah, thanks, Zaki. It's been great for us to discuss chain abstraction and even related to karate. So that was kind of fun. It's definitely want to see that more examples of like, I don't know, maybe it's boxing or these stuff coming up. Like we'd love to see that and love to participate in when we go to cool places like Dubai when there's a flood. So it started with a flood, ended with a karate. So that was kind of nice.